Welcome back, y'all, to another devlog by Maximus Games. We're still making huge progress on our Time Walk Tower Defense game, and today I'm going to show you what I've been working on. So, since my last video a few weeks ago, I've made huge progress. I have completely set up our settings and options menu. I completely reworked Space Emperor Zaj. I also made that enemy that I teased you guys about last time, so you'll finally get to see that today. I made more progress on our enemy directory, and I even started the soundtrack for our game, which I'm really excited about. So, a lot of cool stuff. Let's get into it. Alright, so let's get started with the settings and options menu, which, like I said, I went from start to finish just in the last few weeks. The first step for me was to figure out exactly what settings should be able to change. After looking at some other games and just general brainstorming, I determined that for our game, it's the volumes and attack key bindings. So I wasn't entirely sure how to properly set up our buttons and sliders so that they actually keep their values in between play sessions, but after a quick lesson from Alexander about stack methods and from Nicholas about the player prefs Unity script, I was just fine. Looking at the functionality of our menu, the sliders work exactly how you'd think, dragging it up and down to change the volume. Looking at our key bindings, it gets slightly more interesting. Instead of having a long drop-down list of buttons to choose from, you simply press on your keyboard what key you're trying to bind to that attack. This feature gave me a little bit of trouble code-wise, but I soon figured out how to check which key was pressed, and also told it to ignore the mouse 0 key when you press the confirm button. And voila! A perfectly functioning settings and options menu. The next goal for this menu is to make it impossible to have two attacks tied to the same binding, as well as to make the current values display when you first open up the scene. But besides those details, this menu is ready to launch. So designing our enemies has been one of my main projects during this whole process, so it shouldn't surprise you when I tell you that I have even more to show off. Now, we completely reworked Space Emperor Zaj, giving him an array of cool new powers, which you'll have to wait and play the game to see those. But we also reworked his Magicka voxel design, which I'm going to show you right now, so let's get into it. So for Zaj, we decided to scrap the old humanoid-looking robot for this new version instead. Now, Zaj is the big bad boss. He's the finale of the entire game, so his design needs to look menacing and perfect. So after some collaboration, we decided to go with this daddy long legs futuristic robot that's controlled by Zaj himself. In our last design, Zaj basically was this giant robot, and now in this new one, he is just a guy controlling the robot, so I had to give Zaj a makeover too. And here we go with our final voxel design for Space Emperor Zaj. Alright, now if you watched my last video, you remember me teasing you with a new enemy that I still had to make. Well, I'm very proud to introduce to you the Hit Squad Behemoth. Now I struggled with what to do for this character for a while, but I settled on your classic strongman, totally buffed up from the starting point. Now you guys see me messing around with this teal color in his veins, and this has to do with this guy's power, but you'll have to wait to play the game to see that. And here we go with the final product. I think it turned out really well and it's very unique from the rest of the enemies. So he's ready to set off to Alexander for animation. Now, I also tried working on some things that will really give our game a polished feel, namely the audio. So at first I started working with the sound effects, but I quickly realized I have no idea what I'm doing. So after almost burning my face off and burning our house down, I decided to try something different, which is the music aspect of it. Now, to give you guys a reference of where I'm at musically, I played the double bass a decade ago, I took a single piano course in middle school, and I was in my freshman year choir. So obviously, I am an expert at music theory and crafting my own pieces. Okay, maybe not. So I took to the internet, watched a few YouTube videos, messed with a few different tools, and I settled on using Google's Music Lab, which is ridiculously simple, but that's exactly what I needed as a total beginner. Now I want you to watch and see this complicated technique that I used to get started. It's kind of difficult, but I want to see if you guys can find the pattern of how I'm doing this. That's right, I button mash and hope that something halfway decent pops up, which, thankfully, it has. So after I'm done button mashing, I go in and clean up the song. So I take away some notes, I put some new notes in, and obviously I make it a lot longer than it currently is. And I just get to a point where I feel like it sounds good enough for our game. Now in Google Song Lab, you can actually use different instruments for your song. I decided to go with the synth for this first piece that you're about to hear, and that's just because it gave it this cool, electronic, futuristic feel, which is perfect for our future era, as well as any time dystopian hit squad levels that we have. Now in just a second, I'm going to give you guys the current product. What I decided to do was play my music on a loop while I go in and try out our first level. Now it's not necessarily the right hero or the right enemies for this particular soundtrack, but I wanted to just make sure that the music I'm creating fits in with the vibe of our game. Now, this was also actually the very first time that I've ever playtested our game, and I really need to get better at it. It's kind of embarrassing how bad I am at my own game. But without further ado, here's the first edition of our Time Walk Tower Defense soundtrack. Alright, hopefully you guys enjoyed that. You got to see some of our gameplay and listen to that music that I've been working on. Now I will say my music's definitely not at a final version yet. I need to go back in and rework some parts, and if you didn't notice, the piece is actually only 30 seconds long. So it's fine for those short little bursts of playing, but for long clips and long periods of time, that piece really needs to be longer. But the whole music soundtrack is what I'm going to be working on for the next few weeks, so I'm really excited to get into that, and I'm not worried about it at all. Now, sadly, that is all the content I have for you guys today. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to give it a like. If you're enjoying what we're doing with Time Walk Tower Defense, make sure to give us a comment below. We'd love to hear from you guys. Of course, go wishlist our game on Steam. It's up there right now. This way you know exactly when it comes out. Also, make sure you subscribe to Maximus Games on YouTube and turn on that notification bell so you know exactly when our next devlog drops. Alexander's going to take on next week, and he's going to show you guys exactly what he's been working on. You're not going to want to miss it. That's all I got. Thank you guys for watching. Stay tuned, and of course, game on.